Hey everybody, grab your Bible and a pencil and journal and maybe even a cup of coffee. But first, I would love for you to write this down. Exodus 23, verses 23 to 25. For my angel will go before you and bring you into the land of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hivitites, and the Jebusites, and I will completely destroy them. You shall not worship their gods, nor serve them, nor do according to their deeds, but you shall utterly overthrow them and break their sacred pillars in pieces. But you shall serve the Lord your God, and he will bless your bread and your water, and I will remove sickness from your midst.
Hey everyone, welcome to Write This Down with Dot Bowen. My name is Cara. I am Dot's daughter, and every week we sit down together and we talk through truth and scripture or what God might be teaching us, and we are tackling the topic of idols in this conversation. And I know that sounds so fun, but trust me, it's a really great one, and we would love for you to pull up a chair and join us on this conversation.
A lot of hepatitis.
I was about to say all the verses. I would not have chosen any of those to read just because that was hard. But I was also thinking it's taken me 276 conversations to realize this. But I might have a cup of coffee the next time we talk.
Well,
because you say, you tell me every
Yeah.
time, why don't you grab a cup of coffee?
Okay,
So I
well,
thought,
good.
Well, maybe next time I'll grab a cup of coffee.
You should, and join in on the conversation.
And I'll join in the conversation.
So here's the deal. So today, this is what I want us to talk about. Idols.
Sure.
Because we don't really talk about idols that much. It's not like that's a great, conversation. So what are your idols? That's not something that you normally
I'll tell you.
Discuss over coffee or anything like that. But it's very, very important. I think that we talk a lot about the Israelites and how God set them free and how often they remind us of ourselves. I'll speak for myself. I do, and God called them stiff neck and, his little children coming out of Egypt, and he's going to lead them.
Yeah.
And he gave them some instructions. And one of the huge instructions was when you go into that land, whenever you go, when you walk into that land, they're going to have gods that are going to be worshiping. They worshiped mostly God's creation, but they did worship food and they did worship cows and, animals and stuff like that. But they did worship like the stars and the moon and all those kind of things. And they almost had a god for almost everything. And he said that when you go in there, that you're going to be faced with their gods.
Sure.
And don't serve them.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he says destroy them. And then, because he's telling them, because he's leading them out into the promised land, they were going to need to take care of themselves. They're going to need water. They're going to need bread. They're going to need food. And, if someone got sick in this large millions of people walking out of Egypt and somebody got sick, can you imagine what that sickness would have gone through that entire generation? So the fact that God said, I want you to go in there, you're going to face their gods, but don't worship them. And I'm going to give you, it will be me that's going to protect you from sickness and give you food. And so I find it interesting in the fact that he knew them so well that he was kind of giving them a warning.
Yeah.
And he's saying to them, when you're in this land that I'm sending you, there are going to be people that are going to be worshiping other gods. Don't do it. In other words, don't follow the crowd, even though there was a big crowd going out.
Yeah.
But what he knew was once they entered into that land or got exposed and got, and they were free, although so free now, that they would have the tendency to begin to worship the gods of the people that they were going to be going into the land. Right. And that's huge for us today. That's a huge warning for us because so often when we even talked about this last week, when people make their choices and how we're to give them grace. And sometimes we have to be careful who we hang around with and who we spend a lot of time with because they will pull us away from what we value.
How do we know if it's an idol or if it's just something we love or if it's something else.
An idol.
Like how do we know if something has gotten into, whether it's like something external, like a person or a thing or a job or whatever, or if it's internal, like if it's
Well, this is
pride or I don't know.
Yeah, we went to went to Jerusalem. We went to the Holy Land. Went to Egypt. We went to some places, and we would see where those idols were erected and stuff. And it was always, they talked about carved. They would carve it into a certain God. And Scripture would talk about, why are you worshiping this God? Why are you trusting this God? Because he has eyes we don't see. He's got ears we don't hear. Like, man made this. And we often, think, well, that was just stupid. But what they did was, they went in and they would see these idols, and they began to trust them to provide for them. They began to trust them to, protect them and watch over them. So when they went into that land, instead of trusting God, they would begin to trust that.
Like
the idol, often that is not just what we love, but it's what we're putting all of our trust in.
I know, but sometimes I think there's got to be another level to it, because
it is a level of dependence, but it's also a level of love, because God said don't.
So let me give an example
worship.
Why.
Yeah.
Because I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm saying like that. I think that there's other idols. So I have two thoughts. One is, I think if it's like, oh, if God were to take this away from me, what does that stir up in you? Like that is and not just like, if it's someone you love, like, yes, that would be hard. But if it's something of like, okay, if God were to take this. So I don't know if it's like putting your trust more in things, or if it's just like worshiping it. So like, I have spent a lot of time in counseling in years past, and, never being married and that being a deep desire of mine, I always wanted to make sure that marriage wasn't an idol. Like I wasn't seeking God to get that, or wasn't putting marriage before God, like that, like not loving and wanting that more than I wanted God. And I feel like I've done a good job at like keeping that. And so even in counseling, my counselor even said, she was like, I don't think you have an idol of marriage. And I was like, okay, good. Like, glad. But she said, I want you to pray. She said, but time. And I know I've talked about this at some point on this and in these conversations, but I realized I had an idol of time. Like I felt like I'm running out of time, or I'm like, okay, God, let's get through this because I don't want to waste any time, and so I wasn't putting my trust in time, but I was looking at that almost like it was
controlling your life.
Well, I don't know, but I think she was right. And that's something and that is, one of the things that I'm constantly having to like surrender. And maybe that's part of it. If it's something that you need to surrender, it could be something that.
I think that an idol is something that I love more than God, something that I'm depending upon more than God, or something I found my value and my worth in more than God. We talk a lot about our identity as I'm a child of God. And I think if my identity could be if I'm married, or my identity is, or I find my value whether I'm married, or I find my value if I'm a mother, I find my value if I'm successful or whatever, pretty or whatever, then if I'm finding that this is what identifies me, if this is what makes me feel like I'm somebody, that could be an idol. That could be something I'm looking towards, something other than God to bring value in my life. I'm looking to something other than God that I love, that if God were to remove it, I would stop worshiping and loving God. And so this is extreme. It's not like I'm not going to want to be a mom. It's not, I don't want to be married. It's not like, oh, I can't have these because these are idols. It is not that. It's what's driving you. It's like it's something I bow down to and I worship. It controls me.
Yeah. So like with time, it's not
controlling. That was controlling.
It was controlling.
You.
It was not like I trusted time more than God, or I loved time more than, but it was the controlling factor. And I think because
you felt like if you didn't have time, or like you're saying, if time was running out, and so you were
I was looking to time more than I was looking to God. Like I was looking at like how much quote unquote time I had on the calendar because, we ain't getting younger here. So yeah, like I was focused way more on that than I was the Lord. And I think too, I know in like years past and growing up, I had a misconception of idols that sometimes idols can be sinful, like in and of themselves, like we can have sinful things be idols. But sometimes they're good things, but we've put them in the place of God, whether it's like a spouse or kid or
ministry
or even like money in itself isn't bad, but if it gets in the love of money is the root of all evil, as they say in scripture. But like, so anyway, it's like some things in and of themselves aren't bad, but when they get put in the wrong position, then, it gets out of place. But I had that misconception of like, oh, if it's an idol, then it's bad. And so then if that's the case, then when you surrender the idol, then God's going to take it away.
So let me tell you,
which is not
an
true.
idol is always bad. But
the position.
The essence of an idol may not be bad. So
yeah.
An idol is I'm worshiping it. But if it's your kids or
the
ministry,
position of the idol is what I'm saying. Is like
right.
if your kids or your ministry or whatever have become, or even like sometimes being a Christian can be an idol. Like if we are idolizing what we do for the Lord, like whether it's like, oh, I do, like I serve in the church or like whatever your performance could be. And so, but that's not bad in and of itself, but the position is because it's gotten in the place of the Lord. Mm-hmm. But what I was going to say is I, for a long time thought that, oh, if I surrender the idol, then God's going to take it away. Which is not like, well, if you surrender your husband, God's going to take away your husband. Or if you surrender your kids, God's going to, like that's not always.
That's a bad view of God.
Well, and I think it's the enemy's way of wanting to keep the idol there, so it was just a shift of perspective of God's not asking for our idols to take them, to be a God who takes, but he's wanting us so that we can actually enjoy the thing, so that we can enjoy the person, so we can enjoy the relationship, so we can enjoy whatever it may be.
But every time God would tell the Israelites to go into wherever they were going, he said to tear them down. Didn't say walk by them and think that, well, I'm not
well, those are
different,
different.
So it doesn't matter. But that's where it has to be. It has to be taken
you remove
down.
it. Yeah,
and you're right. If your kids become an idol, it's like they have all of my heart. They don't, like my kids.
Well, they come before the Lord.
They come before the Lord.
Yeah.
And if you want to know if you have one or not, let God take it and you'll see. And it doesn't have to take it through death or whatever, but say that one of the children grow up, which that's what we want them to do.
Yeah.
And go out to go to college. And the mom falls apart. And I cried every time every one of y'all went to college.
Yeah, and I think,
but it's like I can't function.
Yeah,
there's a difference.
Doesn't mean that you're not sad or it's hard or
I can't function. Like I have no purpose in life. I have no reason in life. And I've gone through a lot of these things just in the last 2 years of being able to look at something that I knew that God had removed and go, was that an idol? And it was certain way, breathe retreats that we were doing. And when God said, we're going to stop this, I'm like, what? And I pray, God, why is this bothering me? And I realized that I loved doing it. And I would always say, God, if you ever tell me to stop doing breathe, I want to. And he did. And I was like, I don't, like what? Mm-hmm. And it bothered me. But I had to make sure and pray and ask God, is this so important to me that it's keeping me from trusting you? Mm-hmm. And I'm like a 2-year-old in the backseat of a car mad because the mom won't stop and let me have ice cream. So those are the kind of things that you have to kind of check your heart to know whether or not you have an idol. Is that how important is it to me?
And I think too, it may not be, well, just take the retreats. And I'm using this as an example. I don't think this was like your heart, but it's like, it may not have been the actual retreat, but it could have been the purpose that you were, like that you felt like teaching in that way was what gave you value, or you know what I mean? So it's like, I think sometimes it's even like kind of going beyond like what's deeper than that. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it could just be the actual thing.
Right.
But there's probably something attached to it where it's like, okay, are you getting your worth from it? Are you getting your like
well, I don't know
importance?
that God told me it was an idol, but he didn't really spank me, he kind of put me in timeout because I was praying like God, because the reason that we were doing these retreats, breathe retreats, I was with women. I was with, and enjoyed being with women, loved teaching them and just being with them. We had several things that we did, and the whole heart of the retreat was for them to get away and spend time with God, not listen to me teach, but I did teach. But when God, said, I felt like God was telling me to end that. And when I was praying through it, there were some other avenues like this, write this down, episodes, these, things that we're doing, some other teaching that I was doing that was literally with filming videos, doing some in touch, filming and teaching on their in touch streaming. And it was, probably making more of a impact than that one retreat.
Well, you're reaching more people.
Right. And so anyway, all that to say, I was praying one day and I'm like, God, I don't know that, I just love teaching and I just want to teach. I just want to teach. And I just miss the breathe. I miss teaching in person. And the thought came in my head, which was not condemnation. It wasn't like he was mad at me, but it made me stop. And the thought came in my mind, oh, I thought you just wanted to teach. And without really thinking about it, I thought, well, God, I guess what I'm saying to you is I want to teach the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
And instead of it being an idol, more of an idol, it might have been going in that direction.
Yeah.
But God stopped me. And
the
that's
way
what I'm
you
saying.
wanted it to,
Right.
I wanted to.
This is the way I wanted to do it. I was deceived in thinking, oh, I just want to teach. And this is what I love to do, without thinking that I was beginning to build a little bit of resentment, a sadness. I couldn't enjoy doing this other because that was what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I think that it was almost like God's warning them, like when you go into the land, be careful. And I think some of the things that, like when we're talking right now, if there's some things that you're thinking about that you feel like God has said no to, and you're irritated or feeling like mad at God about it, you may want to sit and say, God, was that too important to me?
Or I heard I don't know if it was a pastor or someone, a Bible, I don't know who it was, but them saying that I don't think it's all idols, but most idols in our life were probably formed in a season of waiting. And he likened it to the Israelites in the desert and the wilderness of...
You mean it came out of the period of waiting?
Yeah. That while they're waiting for Moses, like Moses up on the mountain talking to God for 40 days or however long it was, they got tired of waiting. So then they fashioned the golden calf. And how often we do that, like we're waiting on God, and while we're waiting, we get impatient. And so in that waiting season, whatever we may be waiting on,
fashion it.
We're going to fashion or come up with something else
to provide. What?
And I've like thought about that a lot because I don't know that. I think he was saying that like every idol, and maybe it is, I don't know, but I think most idols, I mean, they kind of,
well, what that is
whatever season at some point in our life, and maybe it could be multiple seasons.
And I think it's more about during that time of waiting is you're waiting on God, you're trusting him, and he doesn't come through. So now you're going to trust in yourself.
You haven't given him a chance to come through, like them waiting on Moses on the mountain.
He was there 40 days and 40 nights.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, they weren't waiting on, they were just waiting for Moses to come down.
To lead them.
Yeah. And so.
And Moses was the one that was supposed to tell them what God said. They were worshiping Moses, or pastor, or teacher, or whatever, more than they were waiting on God to hear from God. And so all of those things can be idols.
Yeah.
I find it interesting, and you were talking about somebody saying idols come out of time of waiting. And I do think because we're so
a lot of times,
we don't even want our microwave popcorn to take long. And so the waiting is really hard. And so now we've got to take matters into our own hands.
Or even like we may just be thinking like, oh, maybe I'm doing something wrong. So maybe I need to go do something, like we
get things moving so they get going.
Yeah.
But I think there was a phrase or whatever I heard someone say that I will become what I worship. And I think that's very, very important because when I worship something, I kind of bow down to it. I kind of like
looking at it.
I'm looking at it, and it's very, very important to me. And it's got my heart. It's got my attention. And so I will become what I worship. Basically saying is that you have to be very careful. Like we worship God. We're supposed to look like God. We're supposed to reflect God's glory in ourselves in the way that we do. So when you're worshiping something and you're bowing down to it and you begin to let your heart to go there. And I think that's where God looks mostly is at the heart of a person, whether or not it's an idol or not. It's what I love. It's what I cherish. It's what.
But not everything we love is an idol.
Out of balance. If I love it more than God, it's an idol. No, you don't
how
stop
can we,
loving things.
Yeah, I know. That's why I just want to, so like practically speaking, how can we discern whether it's a healthy love or
to me is
an idol?
Are you willing to let it go? And that's where if you're not willing to let it go, in other words, if something is in your life, and I'm not saying that you should be sitting there praying that God takes your children, or that God doesn't ever let you be married or anything. That's not what we're saying.
Because I was like, well, I don't want you to go anywhere.
Yeah, and I might be an idol.
Maybe you are.
But,
I don't know.
and I don't make a good God, so don't do it. But what I would say is this: if I don't think I can live without it, it's one thing to love it. It's another thing. As a matter of fact, if you can't live without it, then you're not really loving it. You're using it.
So, like, you and Dad have been married for 50-something years.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that there's an element of, like, how do you live without you've lived with them for 50-something years. How do you?
Well, I didn't say it would be hard.
Yeah, but I'm saying like that.
But a lot of people can't function. Like their whole life's over. They think about suicide. There's no reason to live. There's no purpose in it. When you love something, you don't want to lose it if you love it. But if you can't function and you can't move on, and it is such a part,
and for a longer
an extreme,
like
even in day 2, day 1 of losing something, you have to trust God to give you the strength to move on. And if they are your strength to move on, if they're the reason you're living, number one, you won't enjoy them because they don't make good gods. You're actually maybe in bondage to the very thing that you cannot let go. I feel like anything that you hold on so much that you're not willing to let go controls you. And I think that's where you kind of begin to say, but I just want to make this clear because I don't want anybody to misunderstand this conversation because it's crazy. It's going everywhere. But this is what is that we're not saying it won't be hard. And we're not saying it won't be a struggle. We're not saying that you're going to pray and say, God, just take my kids, take my husband, everything. You're all that I need. He is all that we need. He needs to be all that we want. But what we can say is this: God, you know that I don't want to give up my husband. I don't want to bury my child. I don't want to lose it. You don't want me, to die. And I don't want you to want me to die, but I don't want to be on my deathbed and think your life would be over with because I was gone. Now, would you struggle? Yes.
I don't know.
Would you miss me? I would hope. But I don't give you breath. Well, I don't give you purpose and meaning. And that is why we look at things that become
I don't know who I am without you, or I don't know how to function, or
you don't know how to function.
And I think there's an element too, because it's like, I don't need, like, we also don't, when we're surrendering our idols, I think it's just surrendering it, like giving it to God. It's not trying to deal with, like, okay, I need to be okay with, God taking my husband. It's like, well, no, you're not. That's not it. It's just saying, God, I'm giving it to you. Like, help me to want you more than this. Help me to love you more.
Or give me the strength.
Help me to surrender this to you.
You're my God. I'm drawing upon your strength and your purpose and will for my life. And you are you're what bring value to my life.
Yeah.
I enjoy these things. So if I worship Howard, then I can't really enjoy him.
Yeah.
Because I'm so scared of losing him. and or I feel like I couldn't function.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to say is, I know a lot of people lost their husbands in many years, and it's hard. It is difficult, but God does step in, and you do have the power to go through these fires.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that person just doesn't want to live.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like the heart behind God, not speaking for God, what I imagine is he's not wanting us to surrender these idols because he wants to take them. He's like surrender it so that you can enjoy it. Surrender it so that you can enjoy me. You can enjoy the life I've given you. You can enjoy the gift that I've given you, either through this person or through this activity or through this thing or whatever.
Cara, one time I was getting ready for Breathe, and we were studying. I was teaching on the Exodus and the Israelites, and they were coming out of Egypt. And God said, "Now, when put the blood, I'm about to pull, get you out. Put the blood over
the door,
over the door, and when the angel passes over, so that I'll pass over because you have the blood, meaning obviously Jesus' presence was there. They were trusting him. They obeyed him. Put the blood on the door. The death angel passed through the camp. Anyway, so when that was over with, and Pharaoh said, "Y'all get out," and they're leaving. God told him ahead of time. He said, "Now don't make bread with yeast because you don't have time for it to rise." And he said, when that comes, when I tell you to go, I want you to go. Trust me and go out. So they ended up, and he said, and then when you go out, you're going to get all the gold of Egypt. You can get all, I'm going to provide. And they went out of Egypt with all of the gold and they had all of this gold. Now, God was going to provide for them outside to live in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. Well, when Moses went up to be with God and they began to do the golden calf, they made the golden calf out of the gold that they got from Egypt. So the blessing that God gave them, so it was a blessing that they were out of Egypt. And it was a blessing that they went out with the gold of all the precious things that the Egyptians thought. They turned that into an idol. They began to say to the calf that they just, melted in their gold. And they said, "You let us out of Egypt." Can you imagine what God what you would have thought?
Yeah.
But
we do that.
But we did with the things that God's given us.
Right.
So our children,
we're like, oh,
our time,
you're what gives me purpose. You are what
our money.
Yeah.
These are all the gifts that God has given us to make life enjoyable, but not to worship.
So what do we do with all that?
Well, we ask God if there's something that is in our heart that I love more than him. And is it something that I'm putting my self-worth in, my trust, my affections in more than him? You got to be quick to answer that prayer. And then you just begin to say, God, I don't want that. So you repent. I repent of that this thing, this position, this person, this whatever.
Or even just this, it could be an idea of the way I want this to play out.
Yeah.
That could be an idol.
Your dreams.
Yeah.
Give him your dreams. When God said, "I will give you the desires of your heart, love me with all your heart, and give you desires of," it meant his desires that he will place in our hearts, not our dreams and our desires. Did he ever say that he was going to give those to us? He said, what I put in your heart, you love me and trust me.
I think I'm going to rephrase that. You mean when you are so close to the Lord, you want what he wants.
That's right.
So whatever's in your heart, that's what he wants.
Yeah. And if it's not, then
but you got to make sure you're really close
to him. And
you're surrendered and
that's right.
Close to him.
Yeah. And
commit your way, because it's commit your way to him.
And because there's only one God. And there's only one that's going to satisfy. There's only one that's going to give you hope. And there's only one that's going to give you the power to face whatever this life throws at you.
Well, and I go back to his heart and wanting the idols is not to take it. It's so that you can enjoy.
Yeah. It's funny because the Israelites left Egypt and in Exodus, you read that, they thought God wanted to free them. But they went out of Egypt and their surroundings, they weren't slaves to the Egyptians, but they were a slave within. Because even though they were out of Egypt, they were still in bondage to the things of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's where, it said, I want to set my people free to go worship me. Everybody thinks it's about freedom.
Well, he actually never said to be free. He said, I want to let them go to worship
so that
me.
they can go out to worship me.
Which is true
Not
freedom.
just to be free. Don't worship being free. Worship God and you'll be free. And that's where I think that we can look at the idols. Idols is, am I in bondage to this? Is this something that I feel like is way more, too much important to me? And then just talk to God about it. Because I can't tell you what your idols are. And I would just talk to God. But you do need to take inventory of what you love and what you feel like you could not live without.